Welcome to the Regen Brands podcast. This is a place for consumers, operators, and investors to learn about the consumer brands supporting regenerative agriculture and how they're changing the world. This is your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, AC, who's going to take us into the episode.
On this episode, we have Sean Smith, who is a co-founder and the president at Third Street. Third Street is supporting regenerative agriculture by partnering with regenerative brands in their creative efforts like branding, marketing, advertising, and so much more. In this episode, we learn about why Third Street refers to itself as an attention agency, how they have partnered with various CPGs, their epic rebrand for SunFed Ranch, and we explore tons of marketing and branding opportunities for Regen brands at large. I really cannot thank Sean and the Third Street team enough for being our first ever sponsor of the Regen Brands platform. Because of them, we get to do more of this amazing work and support the work of our exceptional cohort of Regen brands. Whether you're a consumer, operator, investor, farmer, or really just about anything, there are some great learnings from this episode that we're excited to share with you. Let's dive in. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Regen Brands podcast. I am flying solo today with my good friend, Sean Smith of Third Street. So welcome, Sean.
Pleasure to be here. Big fan of the show.
Hey, man, we appreciate you being here. First sponsor in the history of the Regen Brands platform and podcast. So
that's a
really
privilege.
Appreciate that, man.
That's a privilege, man. And first in, I will say this: it's been too long, and I'm sure we will not be the last. How's that?
Yeah. No, I appreciate you saying that, and we appreciate your support. Super excited to just dig into what y'all do and how you have supported some Regen brands and how you want to do more of that work. So all that's coming for the audience. So y'all stay tuned in for all of that. But really, man, just thank you so much. And we're hoping this will be a real badge of honor for you as we continue to grow this thing and grow together.
Like I said, it's a privilege. And what you're doing, as are a lot of the brands that are probably tuned in right now, is nothing short of revolutionary, or certainly part of the revolution, right? And when you're out front, right, when you're at the tip of that plow, you're going to hit those rocks and those stumps and those roots. And so props on rolling forward, man. It's very impressive.
We appreciate that. Super high level before we dig into some depth. What is Third Street? Just for those who have no idea, never heard of y'all.
Absolutely. So Third Street is, at its essence, if you will, the spine is marketing, a marketing firm, right? But our moniker is an attention agency. We're the world's only first attention agency. What we mean by that is when we work with a brand and we first sit down, we make no preconceived notions about the type of attention that brand needs, that your brand needs. I think that's where we differ from a traditional marketing or advertising agency where, candidly, it's rather formulaic. We come from a marketing and advertising background, but we sit down, when we say attention, the formula is first we pay attention. We pay attention to you. We pay attention to your competitors. We pay attention to your consumers. We pay attention to where there's the white space. And if we manage to shut the hell up, pay attention, truly pay attention, right?
Yep.
The answers start to reveal themselves is what we found. And we launched 15 years ago, myself and a former college roommate of mine jumped out. He was in the advertising agency business in Chicago. I was in the media business in Chicago. And we reached the point 15 years ago where we said, it's time. And here we are 15 minutes later, helping brands really throughout the country and throughout the world get the exact kind of attention that they're looking for.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, man. And
thanks.
Y'all come from this world, right? So I'm sure the way that you frame this business and the way that you help folks is taking a combination of the good from the experience y'all had before you launched this and some of the bad, maybe, or some of the things that you wanted to do differently. So, take us back 15 years ago to where this all started and some of the good and the bad that kind of inspired how y'all do the work today and how it started.
Yeah, that's a great question, AC. I think perhaps the biggest differentiator, again, is that attention aspect of things. And what we have found over the last 15 years, where there is no shortage of distractions in the marketplace, right? I've seen some stat where you get hit with upwards of 200,000 to 300,000 different messages a day, the average consumer.
Wow.
Right? So in that context, if you're going to create the kind of attention that you're looking for, for your brand, the idea of paying attention first has become sort of an elixir, if you will. It's becoming more and more a rarer commodity, if you will. So again, our job first to pay attention, but then we have to create programs, initiatives, ideas, and execute on those ideas in a way that's going to capture the attention of who it is that you're looking to capture the attention of. Sometimes it's a consumer, right? Sometimes it's a decision maker at a retailer. And what we're finding is the line between, put it to you this way, ultimately, B2B, B2C, it's P2P, person to person communication.
I love that, man.
And tell me if you agree or disagree. Ultimately, just about every business is B2B, because even if you're a consumer-facing brand, at some point, and we've experienced this, the most effective output of our putting together a program is that it gets the attention of the right decision maker, whether that's an investor, whether that's a retailer, a buyer. Sometimes it can be for internal purposes, morale, get the sales team fired up, right? So ultimately, every brand to a certain extent is B2B, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Especially in our world. I mean, that couldn't be more vital to what all the Regen brands are doing. And I think you nailed the three personas, the three most key personas, right? Investors, retail customers, and then end customers. And that's where Regen brands have a real distinct advantage in the story they can tell.
Indeed.
And I think individually and collectively, we have to raise our level of execution, right? And there's a lot of reasons or things we can improve on to make it higher. There's a collective action kind of piece. There's a resource piece. There's so many pieces there, but us as a movement and us as individual operators within that movement, we need great attention generating things, which there can be many forms of that.
Well, as you well know, at least in our experience, there is no shortage of challenges that uniquely face the Regen CPG sector, starting with consumer awareness, right? Stop 10 people on the street and you say, have you ever heard of regenerative agriculture? How many would say yes, AC?
I think the research says the last decent sized study was 19% were aware of the term.
So one out of every five, we'll say,
have
heard it. Then you take those one out of every five, what percentage could actually explain what it is?
And explain what it means on that product type or that geography or that, it's significantly less. Let's say 5 or less percent, which is very small.
So first I have to have heard of it. Then I have to understand what it is. Then ultimately, and this is the challenge that all brands face, is why should I give a shit? Okay. From a consumer perspective, right? Like ultimately, if we say, well, because it's better for you, better for the planet, often better for the farmer, often better for the animals, we still haven't gotten to the essence of what's in it for me.
Tell me more there.
We're still in the feature instead of benefit zone. And I think universally, that's a challenge that all brands face, but perhaps uniquely regenerative agriculture brands face, in particular when, as you know, oftentimes there is, I hesitate to say a premium, but it certainly is not a value, quote unquote, proposition from a price perspective. There's going to be, typically, you're going to pay just a little bit more, as you should, for the quality that comes with regenerative agriculture. How do you close that gap? And how do you effectively express to the consumer, this is why you should pay just this much more to get this much more benefit?
Right. And how do you do it in a way that's efficient and in a way that on some of these items is on an extremely small pack size, right? And, we've talked about this a lot on the show, and I think it's something we're going to continue to talk about ad nauseum for a long time. And it's really, we have to lead with those core value props for the consumer. You called them benefits. And then we have to back that up with the lagging value prop of Regen Ag, which in this case would be the features, right? And then through a deeper process of brand and consumer relationship, we have to educate on why does it smell so good? Why does it taste so good? Why does it look so good? Some of those leading things, the lagging is the Regen Ag, and it's causing that. So I just love that people like yourself are helping brands work through that.
We love it as well, obviously, especially because it's rare when you can get up in the morning and feel like, you know what, I'm actually doing something for the greater good. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I recycle,
Mm-hmm.
but these brands
Yeah.
that we're working with are truly, truly on the vanguard of affecting positive change. I think the trick sometimes, though, is not breathing your own air, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is always keeping the consumer in mind and what is in it for them. And ultimately, I try to use a brand as an example, as in a positive way. Say Newman's Own. And I'm not suggesting that Newman's Own is a regenerative agriculture or regenerative brand per se.
Yeah.
However,
But household name.
Household name.
Yeah.
100% of profits go to charity, right? Here's the thing. If it tastes like shit, it doesn't matter.
Right.
People.
Yeah, I've never bought one of their products because of that, and I feel like I'm a pretty altruistic person.
Bingo, right?
Yeah.
Is it a tiebreaker? I think absolutely. If all things being equal, I can choose between two products, one that's doing something for the greater good, and ultimately, hopefully, something better for me, right? And the closer we can connect those dots, the better we're going to do. That will win out over a commodity or a brand, perhaps, that is not regen and not doing things for the greater good. I think sometimes, perhaps, those who are doing great things like regen brands and altruistic brands can get a little bit to that navel gazing zone where you forget ultimately at the point of purchase, at that moment of truth, it's going to come down to what's in it for me. And oftentimes, as you know, what leads the parade on that is taste. I'm talking now about CPG brands that are consumables.
Yep.
But it extends to all categories, right? That's great that your deodorant doesn't have aluminum and other stuff. Does it work?
Am I going to smell?
Am I going to smell? Exactly.
Yeah.
So that there again, at the risk of repeating, if we can lead with what's in it for you and make that as tangible as possible, that I think is going to be part of the formula for the success of perhaps many of the brands that are watching right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm curious in all y'all's work, just in general, CPG overall, unless people are trying the product right then and there and there's a demo going on, we can't have them taste it. Some products, they can smell it, but if it's in a package, I mean, they're really not going to have any exposure to that leading value prop. Yeah. So what are the key levers, right? Packaging's one, but what are some other ones? And then what are some strategies in those key levers that are of hyper importance as y'all work with brands?
That's another great question. And I'll see your packaging and raise you how many folks now are shopping online.
Yep.
So you don't even have the opportunity unless they tap on it and zoom in and do, with every keystroke, you're losing about half your audience. So I think that makes the hill potentially even more difficult to climb. Fewer people are going into the stores than were before. I will say, as an aside, within that, there's also opportunity. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with it's a brand called Grocery Shoppy? I'll spell it. It's grocery, as in grocery, shoppy with two I's at the end.
Okay.
It is a women-owned business doing unbelievable stuff. I'll just drop you a quick 30-second explanation of what it is that they're doing.
Yeah, lay it on me.
Instead of shopping by individual item, right? Let's say that you want to make a meatloaf dinner, for example, right? So you go to you take a look at your refrigerator. What do I need? You've got to go online. You got to click, okay, I need this. I need this, this. I got to remember that. Oh, shit, I got to go do this. Grocery Shoppy is an app within the grocery store's environment. Okay, so I'm on whatever. I won't name a specific retailer, but you're on the retailer's.
But it integrates. So it's native to, it's in their native retail.
Got it. There they have, with a few clicks, you've got a series of suggested recipes. What are you into?
Wow.
Here's the recipe. Here's the ingredients that you need. And you deselect stuff that you already have at home. I bring that up to illustrate a bigger point, which is, okay, so you're not able to communicate your messaging there in store or on package because you have a small package, right? It's those that think non-traditionally that stand, I think, to win, right? Not to sound cliche, but has anybody knocked on Grocery Shoppy's door, and I hope Grocery Shoppy doesn't mind me saying this, and said, hey, is there some way that we can integrate our brands into this ecosphere? Is there some way that we can say this recipe is regen friendly, right? So as a consumer, I have the opportunity to plug into that and feel good about myself in so doing. I use that as one out there example of how there's opportunities abound for brands.
Yeah. And there's so many amazing product attributes that can get tied to regen products. Like I can see that getting taken further with, hey, here's the climate footprint. Here's the sustainability score. Here's this certification that you can toggle on and off. And there's all kinds of ways to personalize that further with great attributes of regen brands.
About it. I don't mean to make promises on Grocery Shopping's behalf. I use it simply as an example of an ornament.
Because they could be brand agnostic. Maybe they just want to partner with retailers and they want to let the retailers do that curation.
Exactly.
I feel like Instacart started there, and then they started doing ads with brands. So we'll see.
Exactly. We did a program, perhaps the poster child for non-regen. We did a program with KFC.
Oh, really?
It was a couple years ago, but they were launching their fiery grilled hot wings.
I remember that.
In the city of Indianapolis, as a city, like an entity, the mayor's office, they needed fire extinguishers in their parks department building. So we put together the partnership where KFC brands the fire extinguishers that go into the parks department's buildings. Now, we can talk about whether or not that's appropriate. That's a subject for a different podcast.
That's brilliant. It's brilliant, honestly.
I appreciate that. It solved a problem for the city. It's a critical problem for the city. KFC, they got 60 million earned media impressions. The cost of those fire extinguishers was $5,000. And the reason I bring that is,
Hold on, Sean. Repeat that. That's insane. Repeat that stat that you just said.
For $5,000, they were able to create 60 million worldwide media impressions because this partnership was a breakthrough partnership, and the Parks Department got these much-needed fire extinguishers, and the tie was fiery grilled hot wings. I bring it up only because it doesn't always take a lot of money to get a lot of attention. In this, we go back to the attention agency theme. In this case, that's the attention that KFC was looking for. We are debuting our fiery grilled hot wings. How can we create something that's going to be unique, breakthrough? And needless to say, it's not like they had any shortage of money. It just happened to not cost them a lot to do this.
Wow. So, fun fact for the audience, has nothing to do with this, but is related to KFC. I recently went to Jamaica, and I was in Montego Bay, and I don't know if it's just that part of Jamaica or the whole country. KFC is like Chick-fil-A here. Like the lines inside and outside of every single KFC location we went by, middle of the day, end of night, evening, through out the door and wrapped around 2 or 3 times the drive-thru. So I don't know what is different about Jamaican KFC, but it is the spot in Jamaica. Like I was like, what?
So I was going to ask, did you pop your head in and see if there's any like different menu items like, Royale?
No, I didn't. If it wasn't so busy, I probably would have like tried to explore what was different about it. I mean, we talked to a couple of locals and they were just like, it's phenomenal. Like they just love the food. So I don't know what the deal is. I was like, I mean, KFC's not that good here, definitely. And it's definitely not good for you. So they must just be doing something different down there.
We'll have to investigate further on that. But funny. Yeah. That's funny. Well, and I'll say this too. In terms of garnering attention, you talk about it. What if my package is this big? How do I get the kind of attention that I'm looking for? You got to bait the hook, if you will.
Tell me more.
I'm going to grab something real quick. May I?
Yeah. Do your thing. We got show and tell here.
By the way. All right. So there's a grass-fed beef brand based on the West Coast. Their name is SunFed Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in 3 markets on the West Coast as little as 3 years ago. In this marketplace, this 100% grass-fed beef brand, right?
And regenerative.
Go ahead.
And regenerative.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And they had a hard time breaking out of those 3 markets. We partnered with them to create a rebrand of SunFed Ranch 360. And
I don't even know if rebrand does the thing justice, and we'll put some links in the show notes, but I mean, y'all, this was a total reconstruction across various entities, various channels, various communication mechanisms. I mean, phenomenal work, but this is definitely what we wanted to talk about on this episode, so I'll hand it back over to you.
I appreciate your saying, man. And within that 360, right, let's call it a wheel, right? And you've got your different communication touch points are the spokes. And in the middle of that wheel was a phrase, a consumer-facing phrase that captured the brand essence of SunFed Ranch. And it is this. Can you read that?
All beef, no bull. Yeah.
Those 4 words, right? Absolutely crafted with intent, right? When you talk about a tagline, if you want it to be a rally cry, it's got to be memorable, right? So alliteration is always your friend. There's a tension between all and no. All beef, no bull. Is it ownable? Can anybody else say it? Can they look you in the eye and say it and mean it? Well, the deeper you dig with this brand, the better it gets. And that's, if I may, it's probably very attuned to many of the brands that are watching right now, is the deeper you dig on your brand story, the better it gets. And not every brand can say that. Candidly, very few can. So you have a catchphrase. I know it's just a catchphrase, but check it out. That catchphrase, it being memorable, it being ownable, attitudinal, right? Like when I wear this out to the grocery store or whatever, people, they'll start pointing and laughing. I think they're pointing at me and laughing because I forget that I have it on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Is it relatable, right? Is it extendable? And that's where we get back to the core, right? All beef, no bull. As long as it's backed up with substance, then all of a sudden, boom, it shoots out. Different spokes, all kinds of different ways that message can be expressed. And as we talked about before, every brand being a B2B brand, consumers lit to this. But who really got excited about the entire rebrand, and this was by design, were buyers.
Retailers, to clarify.
Thank you. And with that, according to their CFO, that was the one reason. They'd been talking to the same buyers, the same retailers for 10 years. But when they came with this all beef, no bull program, when they saw the website refresh, when they saw the new content that the brand was creating, it caught fire, and they became the first grass-fed beef brand, 100% grass-fed beef brand to go national. And again, this is the CFO reporting this to us. So this isn't us going, we'll check this out. This was by design. It got their attention, and it worked. So I think, AC, sometimes being small can be a self-fulfilling prophecy where if you strut in, all beef, no bull is not going to, that tone of voice won't be appropriate for every brand. Every brand has its own voice, right?
Right.
But you got to own it. It's got to be unique and memorable and attitudinal and relatable and extendable. And once you've got that, once you've unlocked that, now you're just.
And I think so much to pull out there. And I think you forgot about maybe the most important one, which is it's got to be authentic. And it's extremely authentic to SunFed and what they do, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to communicate to the marketplace. Y'all put together a really cool recap video with some amazing statistics of some of the quantifiable accomplishments that have been had since the rebrand about 5xing door count, increasing social engagement by 20,000%, and I'm forgetting a couple of the other ones. So just truly a testament to a great partnership and great results, and they're an amazing brand. And I think it's going to be table stakes of us scaling Regen and scaling Regen brands to have amazing branding like that. And so that's why, we have to spotlight the work of partners like yourself and service providers like yourself, because there has to be an ecosystem approach to propelling these businesses forward. But I want you to share, I know you don't have the list in front of you, but just some of the deliverables from that program, and take us through kind of behind the curtain of how y'all partner with them, and how, we've talked about this amazing outcome, right? But tell us a little bit of how the sausage gets made.
Absolutely. And the good news is the sausage making is actually part of the fun. Oftentimes it's like the hold your nose and muscle through it, but now you're talking about brand strategy, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Brand essence. We have a process we call the Ascend process. It's a brand building process that's all behind a curtain. And a key element of that brand building process is what's called a brand wheel. And this brand wheel, literally, we work together to fill in this brand wheel. We fill it in with, what would the brand's voice be? What are the unique and ownable attributes of this brand? What is at the center of this? What's the essence of this brand? One all leading to the next. And it's a wheel not by accident, because, not to be too literal, but this wheel actually drives the brand forward. You've got that nailed down. You've got that strategic aspect nailed down. The answers start to reveal themselves in terms of, okay, so how do we go from this brand wheel to something called all beef, no bull? It's going to excite folks, right? And we're using SunFed Ranch as an example, but there's many others that have followed this process that we've been fortunate enough to work with to yield those kind of strong results. All starts with the strategy.
And I know one brand that y'all have worked with is very close to home. Your wife, Beth, who is a absolute rock star, dynamo human being. Love her to death.
I cannot disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why you married that woman. She's an absolute powerhouse. I've sold her products before. We're back at Indie Fruit. I've had her products; they're phenomenal. So avid consumer as well, and maybe give us another just example through your work with Simplicity Juice, how that process comes to life, and working with another food and beverage brand. Absolutely.
So that is the name. Simplicity is the name of this of this company and brand. Their URL is simplicityhh.com. It's a collection of cold pressed juices, and not to overshare, but more in an effort to break the stigma. It was actually born, forgive the pun, of fertility issues and turning to a more holistic approach. I would say that she's holistic in Prada, if that makes sense.
I know the raw material costs of a lot of those juices, and it's tough to not be premium price in that world.
Yeah, and in terms of herself, I think sometimes some of the brands can have a bit of a, due respect, granola feel, right?
For sure.
Which is legit. It's all good. Her approach is a little bit more, I guess, Godiva, if you will, in terms of juices. Always cold pressed, never heated, insists on the finest ingredients. And we helped capture the essence of her brand, which goes back to what we were talking about earlier. What is the benefit? Well, the juices are never heated, right? So that means you are holding on to more of the things in the juice that are good for you, right? Cold pressing is a process where it gets juiced and bottled same day, goes into a vat of water. High pressure is used. As long as it stays refrigerated, you're good for at least 120 days on it. Whereas typically it would have to be heated.
Right.
Okay. So it's cold pressed, more vitamins, more minerals, more stuff that's good for you, tastes better, tastes like you just juiced it in your kitchen. But we still aren't at the core benefit. When we talk about strategy, you see in all of her communications, and you see within her, to your point in terms of legitimacy and authenticity, joy. Joy is at the key, is at the core of simplicity. And we were fortunate enough to help her find that, if you will, right? So all beef, no bull for SunFed Ranch, simplicity, joy. Other brands have their different essences and consumer-facing language, and then it explodes out from there. The key is finding what's at that hub. Once you do that, things can catch fire quickly and in a good way.
Yeah. And both just authenticity and off the charts for both of those entities, because I know both of them. I'm curious to ask you a question for, not everyone has the resources to work with somebody like a Third Street. It's not like you guys are the most expensive thing in the whole world, but, it does cost money, right? And so I think our number one piece of advice for people as they're trying to figure this stuff out is work with a specialized partner that can really help them and dig in if they have the resources. If they don't, and they're kind of flying solo or they're more kind of in startup mode, what are some things that you recommend to do or some strategies or some things to check out on there?
Totally. Full disclosure, great question, number one. Number two, I hesitate to give advice. What I can share is my experience, if that makes sense. But the advice I leave to, like I said, first we want to pay attention to see what the unique challenges are.
I love that, man, because most people would just answer that question. and I know when you say that like you really mean it and it's not just like BS lip service. So
otherwise
on you.
We're just throwing fucking darts, and that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't have to take very long, and hopefully Third Street, I appreciate you saying that, man. And hopefully Third Street has gotten good at asking the right questions to get to the answers as quickly as possible. In terms of what we've experienced in terms of brands that are looking to make some noise in a positive way in the marketplace, there's a couple ways. I'll get tactical with you for a moment. One is social. Now, the challenging part of that is increasingly brands have to pay to play, right? A potential solve to that is oftentimes regenerative brands, especially startups, there's a person. So, and oftentimes the person and the brand are somewhat one and the same, or at least they're heavily overlapping. Right?
Yeah.
Circles are pretty concentric. So as an individual, you have the opportunity to potentially get a lot more reach posting as you versus posting as an entity where you have to pay to reach the audience that you're looking for is one thought. Another very granular thought is a service called helpareporterout.com. Haro, Haro.
Helpareporterout.com.
At its most essential, it is a service that reporters from a variety of platforms across the country and I think across the world use to seek subject matter experts in their chosen field.
Wow. It's like free kind of a PR tool then.
Bingo. There are some, I think there's some, you can subscribe and get different levels of things. Like you can put in, I only want to answer reporters' queries about this topic, and then it'll serve that up to you. But my belief, there's no cost to it whatsoever. You just have to do a little bit of elbow grease to go in there and keep an eye on what questions reporters are asking. And here, to connect the dots, it's not just answering the reporter's questions, but then what you can do with the fact that you're being positioned as this subject matter expert in your own social, in your own sales materials. It's an instant credibility booster for the brand. Outside of that, man, I would take it to 30,000 feet and stuff that everybody's heard already. Hang in there. You're doing good stuff. Hopefully you've got a tailwind. Nothing beats elbow grease. But yeah, there's a couple of ways that I think brands can start to make some noise all on their own at little to no cost.
I think your point about being marketed to from a person versus a brand is a really key thing that we haven't talked a lot about that I'd like to spend a little more time on. I don't know if this is accurate, and I'll look for the stats to add to the show notes, but someone shared with me recently at an event that millennials are used to being marketed to by brands, and they like real clean, crisp aesthetics and a very like cohesive, crisp offering.
Yeah.
And Gen Zs and Gen X, or excuse me, just Gen Z, they really want to be marketed to by humans and other people, and they want things to be humanized. And I really do think that is the future. We'll see if I can find the stats to kind of back that up, but
sure,
that checks out to me, like just hearing that information. And that is going to be your future largest consumer category, and it's going to be your future most sustainability minded category. And so I think it's imperative for somebody at the brand to invest in their personal brand. And it probably is going to move from a nice to have to a must have as we enter into this world of continued growth in e-commerce and social and TikTok and all the things. So curious what you think on that.
First of all, I think it's very well said. Completely agree. Yeah. I think the point of commonality between do I like to be marketed to by a brand or by a person is what I don't like is bullshit. I don't care who it's going. And I think that folks, they may not be able to identify it, but they can smell it. They know. They know. They know what a humble brag looks like, when you're trying to slip something in. And to your point, they know authenticity. And I think to circle back to your original point, you can set the bait with some kind of compelling message. Don't try to say everything. Try to say the one thing that is most likely to grab someone's attention and bring them into your world.
That's a nugget right there, though, because I think that's a challenge for Regen brands is that there's so many great things to say. It's hard to find out what that one thing is, but it should be unique, right, to your brand and your product and maybe even that type of transaction. And that's important.
Dr. Bronner already laid claim to putting everything on the label. So the rest of us are left with need to have a singular message.
Yeah.
One thing that you can say, it's not your only thing. So one thing that's going to bring them in and dig deeper, right? And like we said, if you're in Regen, odds are the story's going to get better the more you get in. So just get them in, right? Have that first date. Then let's talk more. Because it goes back to the very original thing, which is attention. The spans are shorter. The amount of noise is louder. You got to have that special something, right? And ideally, that special something either makes them laugh or makes them cry. Makes them feel some type of emotion. That's where the magic happens. If you can make that emotional connection, they're going to have a lot more patience and time for you when you start telling them more about your reasons to believe and more of the if you will, boring aspects that make you different than everybody else.
People make decisions on emotion and back it up with logic. I think that's psychologically proven. And so, I'm gonna say in a LinkedIn post later this week, we have to change hearts to change minds. And sometimes I think that's a counterintuitive approach. But how can we do that person to person? How can we do that as brands? How can we do that? How can we help each other do that? That's, I think, how we win at this thing in the long run.
Can I tell you a goofy little story?
Yeah, please, man.
Prior to starting 3rd Street, worked for a radio station in Chicago called WXRT.
Were you what's it called when you're on the air?
Like a DJ?
A DJ. Were you a DJ? You got a good radio voice.
Really? Thank you.
Yeah.
When I first started right out of school, I was on the radio.
That's awesome. I need some of those tapes sent to me.
I think they've been destroyed. It's really appropriate. But so this station in Chicago, WXRT, if there's folks that are watching that are familiar, it was a legendary station before I ever got there, right? But I was working on the marketing side of things. And one of the phenomenons that we discovered, and I carry with me to this day, is we would sell T-shirts for the radio station at events, and it would have the station's logo on it, right? It did okay. People like to represent, they like to say, okay, I'm an XRT fan, did it.
Yeah.
Then we started putting rock and roll phrases on the back of the T-shirt. And one comes to mind. King said, "Only my mama loves me, and even she isn't sure." Boom.
Yeah.
Tenfold. And I bring that up as a micro example, a little silly T-shirt, but when you start to make that emotional connection, again, make them laugh or make them cry, give them something to latch onto emotionally. That is truly where special things happen, right? And we see it every day. We see it every day. People don't want to be educated, by the way. And I think that's perhaps a miss that happens a lot, potentially in this category, candidly. Folks don't like to be preached to. You shove something down someone's throat, what's the natural inclination? Gag, right? Don't preach. I don't want to learn more. I want to be educated, right? I want to be enlightened. I want to feel a connection. I want to be able to either click or reach for something and instantly and instinctively feel good about that. And again, that path there, at least in our experience, all starts with some central message, some central theme, essence that you build from.
I think that's especially true at point of purchase, right? Maybe it's not true all the time on social or all the time on the website. And like those are the opportunities to educate. And we're going to have to do that.
Yes.
But it's about, if the Masters, we're just coming off Masters weekend for all the golfers out there. It's like, we don't use the sand wedge on the tee box and we don't use the driver around the green. I mean, maybe some people do, but there's a reason for that, right? It's different tools for different shots or different objectives. And, we're all, I think, having such a close proximity to so many of the brands, some doing that really well, some not doing it so well, but all trying to do it really well. And we collectively and individually are going to figure out how to do it much, much better. And that's going to make a huge difference, hopefully.
Amen.
Yeah.
It's there to be had. And I think the good news is, and there are many who know much more than I do, but it sure seems like the tailwind is at the backs of Regen brands, right? I don't think people are going to stop caring about the things that Regen brings to the table. Now it's just a little bit of a gold rush, right? A little bit of Wild West. Still no real standardized certification, if I'm not mistaken, on Regen brands.
There's many. There's none that have won. There's definitely, I would say, in my opinion, there's a hierarchy to the certifications, but we support all of them. And there's a lot. There's like 6, 7, or 8 at this point.
Well, there's no shortage of hurdles, but there's also no shortage of tailwind, if you will. If you know which way to point your back. And for every brand, that's going to be a little bit different, but that's where the special is as well.
And that's the magic of Third Street, right? It's taking that energy and the tailwind and then turning it into things that are actually concrete that drive results, which is, I've worked with enough agencies myself to know that 99.9% never follow up to see what the quantifiable results are of their engagement. And the fact that y'all had those 4 stats, and I'm sure even more, was like, not only was the campaign with SunFed just so impressive, but that piece was so impressive. And that, I'm gonna give the Midwest a little bit of a shout out here because we're both, from the Midwest.
Yeah.
But to me, that just showed like a real commitment to collective success and a real commitment to, hey, let's get something done here in a way that moves the needle, not just in a way that makes sure we get paid the invoice.
Amen. Appreciate your saying. Hey, we love winning awards. And we've won awards.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean shit if the results aren't there. Ideally, you're doing both. You gotta have those results. And to get there, very candidly, it's a partnership. I know that sounds trite, but it's the absolute truth. Are you pulling, is brand team, agency, all pulling the rope the same direction?
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, those are partnerships you just don't bet against.
Mm-hmm. That's where the magic happens, man.
It
That's
is.
what it's all about.
It is.
I forget there's three things in agency work. There's like fun,
Fame,
passionate. Yeah.
Fame, fortune, fun.
Yeah.
Ideally, all three.
Mm-hmm.
Should have two. Gotta have one.
Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like that's talking to yourself and other service providers that have worked with Regen brands. It's like, it's such a powerful intersection of all three of those, or it can be, right? And that's like the symbiotic relationships we need more of, right? And like that's exciting to me because I think this category has the great opportunity to produce them.
It's Third Street, right? We're an attention agency. We describe it. Attention agency means the name Third Street is derived from the notion that large brands often move slowly and have sort of predictable results. Smaller brands are nimble but make limited impact. And our philosophy is you can be small and still make an impact. You can be big and still be special. That's the Third Street that we try to bring to every partnership that we engage in. And we've been very, very fortunate to have some outstanding partners currently and throughout our 15 years.
Yeah. And we're looking forward to you adding some Regen brands to that list, some more Regen brands to that list. And that was the perfect segue into our closing question, which is, we ask everyone that's on the podcast this. You're our first non-brand answer of the question. And it's how do we scale regenerative? How do we get Regen brands to have 50% market share by 2050? And I think part of the answer is definitely what you just said. Small brands having a big impact and big brands being special and committing to doing this with integrity. But what would you add to that?
Yes, you answered the question. And be not afraid. I think perhaps there's a hesitation. When I described that KFC partnership, it takes a brand with gusto to say, we're going to do this. We're going to make some noise. And I use that as an example. It doesn't have to be specifically that. But are you confident? You know what I'm saying? Are you leaning forward? Are you ready, if you will, psychologically, as a person, as a brand, to say, I don't have to be small. And even if I choose to be small, I can still make impact. Number one. And number two, I think the more, and you are at the vanguard of this, AC, the more that Regen brands can support one another, right?
Yep.
Strategic partnerships, what, from as little as cheering you on to as big as these three brands are going to work together to do this special thing and make this noise in a positive way and garner this kind of attention. The more it supports itself, the larger it's going to become, and more quickly when we get there.
Yeah. And I love that Kyle's working so hard on that with the Regen Coalition. And that is how we reduce retailer and consumer confusion, is the retailers will not align themselves around regenerative until the brands do it first. And we can have the silos of the different certifications or the different products and the different methodologies, and that's great. And they're all amazingly, contextualized and important for their different, attributes. But until we give people a simple overarching framework that everything can tuck underneath, it's going to be really hard to move the needle on this thing. Very
well said, right? Physician, heal thyself. It starts from within this industry. And it's tough sometimes. That's, that can be very aspirational, almost rhetoric-like language, if you will. But I've seen it firsthand where, are you truly willing to proactively help another brand that is not your own in the name of lifting, the rising tide?
And I'm happy you said both of those things because, one, I think the vast majority, if not all the brands that we work with are willing to do that, really willing to do that, which I appreciate. And it's part of why I love working with them and working on this topic so much. And two, I forget what my second one was. Oh, this is not an impossible task. I mean, I kind of framed it as a big task that's absolutely essential, but we are much closer than it probably appears. And, some updates from the coalition that I'm sure Kyle will share on the show at some point show that we're very close. And this is something that is very capable of us to coalesce and get done together. And so let's go do it. I'm excited for it.
Love it. Love it. Props to what you're doing, AC, and props to the brands that are watching this right now that, again, are at that tip of that plow, doing something special. You are in the process of leaving it better than you found it. And at least from where I sit, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, trying to. They're doing the hard work. So all we're trying to do is evangelize and support their work. And, you through supporting this podcast are doing that. And so can't thank you enough for stepping up to the plate, being sponsor number one, and just excited to share this and more on what y'all do with everybody. And just thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
It's our privilege. It's our privilege.
For show notes, episode transcripts, and more information on our guests and what we discuss on the show, check out our website, regen-brands.com. That is regen-brands.com. You can also find our Regen recaps on the website. Regen recaps take less than 5 minutes to read and cover all the key points of the full hour-long conversations. You can check out our YouTube channel, Regen Brands Podcast, for all of our episodes with both video and audio. The best way to support our work is to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform, subscribe to future episodes, and share the show with your friends. Thanks for tuning in to the Regen Brands Podcast, brought to you by the Regen Coalition and Outlaw Ventures. We hope you learned something new in this episode, and it empowers you to use your voice, your time, and your dollars to help us build a better and more regenerative food system. Love you guys.